Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Easton Volunteer Fire Department for tonight's town hall meeting. I'm Robert Rankin, the representative for Ward 2 on the Easton Town Council. Joining me up here at the front is Don Abatello, Council President. Mayor Megan Cook is here, and thank you for attending, as well as Ward 4 Representative Reverend Davis. So thank you to you those guys for coming, and thank you to you all for coming tonight. Tonight's is the first of 4 town halls that will be hosted by each of the 4 ward representatives on the town council. Just for your reference, on October 9th, Dr. David Montgomery will be hosting the town hall for Ward 3 residents. The town hall for Ward 4 residents, hosted by Reverend Davis, will be October 23rd, and the town hall for Ward 1 representatives for Maureen Curry. That'll be held October 27th. The purpose of these 1-hour town hall meetings is to engage residents in an informal way, to share updates on projects and activities going on around town. We've also set aside time for questions and answers, and so we want to make sure we get to that. I'd like to thank the town staff for preparing the slides that I'll be using tonight to go through the updates. I'd also like to thank the Easton Volunteer Fire Department for allowing us to use their facilities here. Just a quick housekeeping note. The ladies' room is across the lobby here, out the door, and the men's room is down the hall and to the left down the hallway, in case you need to use those during the course of the town hall. And without further ado, we'll get into the updates. I'd ask that you please hold your questions until the end, and we'd be happy to go back to the slides to address anything specific to those updates. The first update we want to share is the East Avenue Storm Drain Project. If you've ever been in the area around East Avenue, which runs north-south along the rails to trails between Dover Road and Elizabeth Street, following a big storm, you may have noticed flooding in the streets and around properties. The East Avenue Storm Drain Project is supplementing the existing 100-year-old brick infrastructure with over 2,100 feet of new pipe that will more than triple the water flow underground to reduce flooding in the area. The team has been out working on this project for several weeks, and it's expected to be completed in December of this year. I'll also mention here that you've probably seen Public Works around town working on additional underground storm management issues, and those will continue on a time and budget dependent period. Moving on to the next update, an important commercial development and investment update is Vetagro's recent groundbreaking at the Mistletoe Hall Commerce and Business Park in the north of the town. Vetagro is an Italian firm that manufactures animal nutrition products and supplements. This Easton site here will host Vetagro's first U.S. manufacturing facility, and that'll be opening around July 2026. It's also the first commercial operation to open up in the Mistletoe Hall Park. I'd call this a significant addition that will add jobs and commercial tax revenue to the town while contributing to the animal feed industry, which is important to the Midshore. On the next update, so an important update that will positively impact all residents of the town of Easton as well as Talbot County is the completion of the A. James Clark Emergency Services Training Campus, which is also happening in the Mistletoe Hall Commerce Business Park. Currently, there is no combined first responder training facilities on the Midshore, and so this new training campus will feature buildings, training facilities, and educational courses to support Talbot County law enforcement, fire department, and first responder training. As noted on the slide, the land for this campus was donated to the Easton Volunteer Fire Department by the town of Easton, and the fire department has been managing the fundraising, the necessary fundraising and construction processes related to this. So really an excellent update. Another safety-related update is the upgrades to all the traffic lights in town. For the past couple months, Public Works has been upgrading all the traffic signals within town limits to include new sensors and cameras that will cycle the lights more quickly and efficiently and reduce wait times at the intersections. In addition, all signalized crosswalks in town will be equipped with push-button signals to help improve pedestrian safety. These improvements are being completed with funds that were secured through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or ARPA. So these aren't using taxpayer dollars. All of this work should be completed by 2026. Moving along, you may have noticed a lot of activity downtown near the Visitor Center on Harrison Street. And if you didn't know what that was, it is the Visitor Center across from the town office. For the past couple months, a number of upgrades have been made and are being made to enhance the visitor experience and make the Visitor Center more ADA accessible. That's the Americans with Disabilities Act. In terms of the visitor experience, there will be screens and other interactive opportunities for visitors to learn about Easton and help guide their visits. And as you can see on the slide, the bathrooms, the brick walkways, and the parking spaces are being made ADA accessible. Finally, I wanted to flag the Visitor Center will include new offices for the Easton Economic Development Corporation. EDC is our local organization dedicated to supporting commercial and economic development. Moving along, another important department within the town of Easton is the Parks and Recreation Department. And as you may know, I hope you know, we have a number of great parks and public spaces in town, as well as facilities to rent, sports activities and camps, etc. However, the process for accessing these resources or reserving space has not always been clear and easy. So that's why the Parks and Rec Department is building out a new online interface that will allow users to view, reserve, and pay for town facilities, including pavilions and ball fields, as well as register for camps. This platform is in development and is expected to be launched very soon. A huge undertaking that is years in the making is the update of the town of Easton's comprehensive plan. As you all may know, the current comprehensive plan was finalized in 2010 and was intended to be a 10-year plan, so we're a little bit overdue for this update. However, the town's planning and zoning department and the Easton Planning Commission have been working diligently on updating the comprehensive plan, and last month the town council met with planning and zoning and the planning commission for a workshop to review the current draft as well as make a few suggestions to the plan going forward. We anticipate the full draft of the comprehensive plan will be made available for public review and feedback very soon, after which there'll be a public hearing to receive public comment. There will also be a chance for the public to submit written comments to impact or provide input on the comprehensive plan. And then we're hoping to finalize the comprehensive plan hopefully by the end of this year, and that will guide development and future direction of how the town of Easton wants to proceed for the next decade or so. Another development update is the East End Small Area Plan Project. For those who don't know, the East End Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization Plan focuses on the Dover Road corridor heading east out of town. And that was the first small area plan approved in town over 25 years ago. It's now time to reassess and update the existing plan to reflect current needs, assets, and opportunities. To help inform this process, the town hosted interactive stakeholder meetings, which were called charrettes, to gather public and professional input. A report with recommendations is expected to be finalized in October, and that will then be presented to the town council for review and approval. The town website does have quite a lot of resources and reports from these charrettes, which you can access and take a look at. Just two more updates to go. A big topic of discussion during the town elections held earlier this year, as well as what seemed to be happening through conversations ever since that time, is development and more specific housing. While we have a number of residential projects that are happening around town, there continues to be a need for more affordable and attainable housing. We call that affordable, attainable, workforce housing, call it whatever you will. There still seems to be a need for that, especially for those who are working in town and maybe can't afford to live here, those who want to move here, those who are starting out professionally, starting out young families. So this, in 2024, the mayor and town council formed an 18-member task force to address affordable housing needs in Easton. So that task force has been meeting since that time to discuss and align on recommendations to implement policies, regulations, programs, and incentives to increase the availability of more affordable or attainable or workforce, what have you, housing in town. After joining the town council in May, I joined this task force and I participated in the last meeting in August. During that meeting, the task force agreed on the recommendations they would like to present to the council, as well as provided some additional suggestions to the report to make it a little bit more digestible and direct. The final task force report is near completion. That'll be presented to the town council in the very near future. That will also be put out for public review. The last update I'm going to share is Engage Easton. Engage Easton is an online platform that will offer a level of public input and interactivity never seen before in town. The new website will allow for the public to provide feedback on town projects. It will provide interactive maps, surveys, and polls to keep residents informed. And it will keep up-to-date timelines and descriptions for projects going on across multiple departments in town. This is really an unprecedented level of access and engagement that the town will be able to utilize, and we encourage residents to do that. This platform is expected to launch next month. So with that, I thank you all for your attention to these updates. We now have around 45 or so minutes to address questions and answers, which we're happy to do so. Again, President Abatello is here, Mayor Cook, and some others. So we encourage you all to ask any questions you may have, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we are not able to, certainly we will go back to the appropriate parties within town and find those answers to share. So I think what we can probably do is maybe use the microphone for this portion. And you're the closest.
Carla, how? I'm wondering, does anybody know what's going to happen to the old hospital? Can you tell us?
Sure. I mean, I'll start, and then maybe President Abatello or Mayor Cook can add to it. I think the first thing to note is that the hospital being built right now is several years out from being complete. So we have some time to see that through and determine kind of what we're going to be doing with, or what can be done with some of the existing properties. And I say that's not just the existing hospital, that's also the medical offices on and around Dutchman's Lane and Idlewild, because you would assume that a lot of those offices may want to move out to the hospital campus to be able to be closer to that, closer to patients. And so we do also have that to think about, what's going to happen to those buildings and those properties on those two roads, because certainly there's a lot of opportunity. With regard to the hospital, my understanding is that a grant has been submitted to the Department of Commercial and Housing Development, I believe, some DCHD within Maryland. And we're waiting to hear back on the status of that grant. I think that grant, if I understand correctly, would be utilized to help address whatever we want to do with that property, whether it be trying to repurpose it for something else or potentially tear it down and build something new. I've also heard that there's some interest around, various people meeting on the campaign trail that would like to see it become maybe a place that could be a housing option for seniors, being that it already is equipped kind of with ensuite bathrooms and has kind of set up already. It could be utilized in an easier town. I've also heard some ideas around potential educational opportunities. But as far as I know, that is where we are with that. And again, we have a few years to kind of figure that part out before we use the current hospital for its use. President Abatello or Mayor Cook, do you guys have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just one thing before the Mayor speaks. If you paid attention earlier, the East Area Small Plan is something where we took a lot of input from residents, and I think the idea is to do something similar for the hospital. And to get input not only from the people who live around the hospital area, but also from residents across town, because this is a major change to that part of town, and input so I think that's part of the plan. Mayor? Sure?
We're looking to have the same public process that we went through to spend planning to address over a number of these great requirements.
Yes, sir. Hey, Bill. There's a green light that should be on.
Thanks for doing this and taking the time to do it. It's a good idea. Thanks to the fire department for making this available. And it gives everybody an opportunity to express themselves. I have two issues. One is everybody talks about housing. Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. I'd like to know what the true definition of affordable housing is. Do you have a number?
I mean, I have a number, but I think somebody else probably has a different number, and others have different numbers. So it depends on the size of the unit, what type of a unit it is. I think in order for something to be, quote, affordable, obviously it needs to match with that homeowner's or that buyer's, budget and where they are in life and kind of what they're looking to do. But I think definitely something less than $300,000 would be more affordable than a lot of the properties that we see coming up. Certainly, again, that depends on whether it's a smaller unit like a small townhouse or a smaller house versus something else. But I think probably the baseline is it needs to be sub that in order to be considered quote affordable to folks who are looking to move into home ownership.
Well, construction costs are going up to $1,000 and what, 1,500 square feet. That plus the value of the land, plus the impact fees, all the other ancillary costs that go along with it. You can't build a 1,500 square foot house for anywhere near $300,000. My question to the town is, it's always amazing if the town says, we want to build a house, you can't use this land for that because we're not going to build it for you. Well, the town is going to have to be in a position that if you want to build a house, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to give some relief in terms of impact fees. You're going to have to look at the utilities commission and say, hey, what are you going to do for these people? You and I talked about tips.
Yes.
And now I get it back to the mayor, council member, several years ago. And they didn't have the interest in the call, so I can only assume there was no interest. But if you want affordable housing, that needs, if there is a need, as a real primary first plan, if there's a need. And we're starting to address other there. Church and another group trying to do a project back off on that street, really built, and we get something 65 minutes out of that. So I think that it's small. The current housing project, Central Street Village, only has a 6-year waiting list. So maybe we can reduce that risk a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for that question and for sharing. I will also actually share a couple things from the discussions within the Affordable Housing Task Force, because they also do realize these issues and they're real experts in the different calculations and values and things like that along with the planning and zoning team. But the task force is making some recommendations to town. I can say that one of those, and it'll be up to the town council to decide which ones they want to take forward, but it does sound like some of the zoning regulations in town with regard to setbacks, with regard to density, with regard to some other rules that are in place right now, could be revised to help facilitate and allow for certain types of builds that aren't currently allowed in town. And so that could be a way to facilitate smaller units or more units on a property to help facilitate maybe some smaller units that might be more affordable or less costly. I'd also say another topic that's come up, and it's one that would need to be addressed and approved and whatnot, but you mentioned the land, the cost of the land. That always is, one of the things that is most problematic when it comes to development because the land is so expensive. And so one of the recommendations is likely going to be around seeing whether and how the town can acquire pieces of land that may be owned by the county or otherwise that could then be utilized as a type of a public-private partnership to then provide some lower cost housing on that property, because if you don't have to pay for the land, it makes it a little bit easier to negotiate and have someone that's maybe more willing to develop something that's more affordable.
Great ideas, and I think they identify another municipalities and they work. So I would challenge the town is that if you say you want something, you have to be prepared to give something.
I think that's fair. Did you have another question? You said you had two?
The green light's on. Hi, I'm Andrea Witt. I live on Brooklands with a clear view of Washington. And the other evening, I was out walking the dog, in which they see that an electric scooter, which we have many of. I did look up the regulations for Maryland, but it was two teenagers barreling along, holding on to each other, and hopefully one of them had hands on the scooter, going at least 25 miles an hour without helmets. Are we doing anything to educate or even regulate people on scooters? They're all over the place, it seems, or maybe I'm just seeing more of them.
That's a good question. I'm looking for the chief, and I found him. Because I think this is a public safety issue ultimately, and I know the police department has been looking at this, but I don't want to put you on the spot necessarily. But do you have anything you'd like to share on that?
I think that the last time that we met on e-bikes and scooters, we decided to follow the state law for now. That was roughly a year or so. We did a little fun on that. Definitely, I think it's a good thing that rather than towards it. Seeing people going through, like, and getting off that sound. People right on scooters. I certainly appreciate that it is a low-cost mobility solution for people that have more cars and insurance and everything that comes with it. But I think with what we've seen, that we're taking another look at should we actually change some of our rules on use on the actual rail to trail, especially when we have a higher concentration of pedestrians. So it's a work in progress for us. We have increased our flight control on the rail trail over the summer by one supervisor doing a lot of volunteering to be out there on the bike. If we're still doing all of this, it's doubling our staff and so. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the actual code is on terms of like 1 and 2 if we riding on a electric scooter. It's not something that is in my wheelhouse when I was really.
It's even worse on 50. Those bikes and scooters are zooming through 50s, through the red lights. I had one come head on to me the other day. It's lucky that I could swerve into the other side. Flat. He ran right into me. So he was going down 50 on the wrong side of the road. The cyclists are not paying attention to stop signs, red lights. It's getting bad.
Well, I think from a town council perspective, we hear you all about this, and this is something that we can certainly continue to think about and maybe talk to the town attorney about. I see Chief Lowry writing some notes, so I know that it's on the police department's radar. So, as he said, it's a work in progress. It's a newer challenge and something that I don't think we have a lot of great solutions happening other places, but I think we definitely could, try to look at what other jurisdictions have done, if at all. But certainly, it's something that we're hearing is an interest.
And also, you mentioned 50. It's multi-jurisdictional, so it's not just CPD, it's also getting state troopers and county involved as well.
Thank you. You have it, yes.
I don't know how to do it.
It should be on.
Okay. You mentioned traffic lights.
Yes.
Are there going to be cameras with those lights?
Well, so not new lights, but the lights that exist are being equipped with cameras and sensors to better sense and recognize cars waiting so that they can cycle through. For example, Ward 2 is the Five Corners intersection is in Ward 2, and certainly there have been some different patterns of those lights. But I have noticed that if there's not a car on one of the roads, for example, coming down Idlewild, that light will not change for them. It'll skip that and it'll go to the people where they are sitting. So the existing traffic lights are being equipped with these sensors and cameras to help make those more efficient. And then also those signals in the town limits, where there are crosswalks, they're putting up the signals, the walk, don't walk, which I think are really helpful downtown at comparison. And I always thought that, having worked in Washington, D.C., I always thought that was strange that we didn't have more of that in Easton, because we definitely want to facilitate pedestrian traffic, we want to facilitate visitors being here and being comfortable walking. And in order to be comfortable walking, you need to have confidence in the intersections and knowing that when the light changes, it's your turn to walk, the pedestrian versus the cars moving in front of you. So those are the updates that happen.
As far as, I think we're going with the scooters, as far as like red light cameras and things of that nature, you have to keep in mind, anything on Route 50, anything on 322, or anything on Matchtown Road, anything on 31, those are all state operated cameras. You don't have any control over them whatsoever. You can make requests, but as far as anything on there, they're going to put and I know we talked about a speed camera on 50 to slow people down, since we have lots of accidents on 50. Those are all things that have to be approved by the state. And so I would recommend that if anybody feels that speed on 50 or is running the red lights at Dover, Goldsboro is extreme, that I would reach out to your state representative and tell them that there needs to be these options on the 50.
That would also have some impact on the unlicensed vehicles that we can,
It could help. It could help. I'd also add that, sorry to cut you off, but one of the other reasons why I think it's important to talk about camera, while we don't want speed cameras, but we're also, from, talking about the budget, for example, we always want to do more projects. We want to have more money to do things, but we don't want to raise taxes. And so we've been talking about what are other ways to try and generate revenue that doesn't relate to raising taxes. And so if we had, for example, a speed camera on 50 that was getting people going to the beach, going through Easton, not from Maryland, then yeah, right. And so I've received some reports from residents telling me how much these jurisdictions are collecting on the speed cameras of people just coming through town that don't care or don't know. And certainly, so, there's nothing to report on that, but it certainly is a potential opportunity to generate some additional revenue that doesn't involve taxes. So I'm a proponent, but we're a ways away.
So just so you all understand, on speed cameras,
School zones. Right.
Maryland state law governs speed cameras and red light cameras. Maryland state law only allows automated speed enforcement to be in school zone, that's been designated by the municipal legislature, the council, or in construction zones.
Well, what if they do it involved in the state?
So-
Speed cameras involved in the city, if you go through a traffic light, when you ought not be going through that traffic light,
The General Assembly
you
is,
get a ticket.
well,
Just
if,
the
if red light cameras are different. Red light cameras are different. They can be on any red light, but it also, there is a process that we go through to do that, to be able to justify those cameras there. And then there's also, we have to deal with a vendor that also has their own model. So it's not as easy as just throwing a speed camera up wherever you can do it. The fines are regulated, everything's very regulated on this. So we have asked our speed light, our automated enforcement vendor to study 50 and the parkway to show us we know where our top accidents are, where there are top violations of red lights and things. So in general, my philosophy is we use those tools to solve problems. So we're actually right in that process. It was just a month ago that I met with our vendors to say, hey, here's our top accident intersections. We do a study to see how they marry up with red lights and speed. So.
I want to go back to. I want to go back to his question on affordable housing. And this is just be a quick one. You know where Scotty's old building was that they just put up this?
Is that building affordable housing?
No.
Is that what you'll
To
see on every corner of this?
Me personally?
Yeah, it's just like a black box of this building, and so every vacant block is about that size. Is that what's going to be built in Easton?
no.
I can't answer that specific question. I do think the balconies look kind of cool. The storefront looks kind of cool on the ground floor. It is kind of close to the sidewalk, but that's because they had to put the parking in the back. I think it's a project by project situation, and the developer does need to go through the planning and zoning commission, the planning commission, sometimes the town council to make sure all those
Does
plans
that
align.
type of building need to be in the historic district, a square box?
I think that's probably a question for the historic
Yes, it is.
folks or
But my other question is about, does Easton not need a noise permit?
we've spoken about that before, and we spoke about that this evening already. That's certainly something that I'm going to take what you shared and also what you shared with me about some of the businesses, what we can do with that. I'm not aware of there being one in place now, it would be something that if there was desire and interest within the council, we could look to do something about that. But I think it would need to be justified by the need.
Currently, the only thing that's on the books is there is a outdoor music code, which is different. And there's been some discussion about the nuisance ordinance because there are certain things that are popping up in town that are becoming a problem for residents. And so, that's something that I think the council is genuinely interested in looking at. Not just noise, but also maybe the smell as well.
It's actually had people leaving booklets because of the noise level there. I mean,
it might have to go through.
Two people have left. I mean, you've got the vacant houses. And immensely. You can't, 5 o'clock in the morning, this man from everywhere that comes along with his pickup truck. And he's in his pockets and cutting sauce thing or cutting what that is. And all you do is them pop them down the road from Harrison to Washington Street, so to speak. And it goes on continually.
We hear you bringing this up, and so just as President Abdel said, something that the council can talk about and assess, whether it's something we want to look at taking on. Yes, sir.
Yes, I don't think I need to microphone.
Hi.
I have the recommendations that we put in the outlet last year and we incorporated into the comprehensive plan. It seemed like a slightly skewed comment. And I think it would be a good spot to have standalone affordable housing strategy and comprehensive plan already completed but didn't incorporate them.
Yeah, well, I'd say ideally they will be. I think that was the plan, right? This piece was intended to be included into the comprehensive plan. John, you have a greater history.
One other thing too with the comprehensive plan, due to the timeline, the requirements from the state as far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, it will not actually be passed. The comprehensive plan won't even be passed until early 2026 because we have to wait a certain time frame for public hearings and things like that. So there will be time to work some of those proposals into the comprehensive plan. There's also middle housing concern, which I meant to bring up earlier. Right now, as far as townhouses, for example, in order to put a townhouse in something that's zoned residential, you need a special exception. You have to go through the planning and zoning, board of zoning appeals in order to get that approved. It's a whole extra step for a contractor to developer to do that. And so one of the things that we're looking at also that ties in is using middle housing and trying to get that incorporated in the plan. So there's some different things that we've got some time to do in the comprehensive plan.
No, I understand that, but the state passes a lot of laws, some of them have to do some money. The state seems to pass a law about modular housing. People build housing, where you call it. And yet the town of Easton, to my knowledge, doesn't address that, doesn't call premium housing. It's really an infield project. You look at trying to purchase a lot, put up water and sewer, paying necessary capital fees. You're talking about a substantial amount of money. So again, your definition of affordable housing needs to be qualified by what the costs actually are. Break it down item by item, everybody's expense. I think it would be a whole lot easier to address exactly what the number is.
Anyone? Yes, David.
Well, you talk about affordable housing. You talk about affordable housing. Everybody experiences that. Modular housing, people at the very end, people look at it as a trail without real. My wife and I live
3,500 square foot modular house. We came in 12 pieces. It was 3 stories high.
Beautiful, well built. The neighbors were a little nervous when the truck came up. The lots are there. But once it was built, it was a real asset. And it was not expected to suggest emergency information to the work people that lot of housing did work, does work. They actually improve emergency. I don't know if that falls in your job description, but I think frankly someone needs to do a work. Yeah, I do. And how to actually improve it. Okay. Throw it out to you.
Tiny homes is the newest thing. You're talking affordable. Tiny homes can be the most affordable of all. There's no reason, investors, retirees, singles, living in 300 or 500 square foot house.
Well, I think the modular piece, I haven't heard that come up a lot recently, but my grandparents built a modular home in Oxford, and it's now really nice. I mean, it's added on to, but I think to your point, it's not necessarily what people's thought process or connotation is, and so certainly something I think we can flag with the task force and the Affordable Housing Board and just see whether there can be Mayor Cook.
We actually have examples of modular homes in Easton, on Chapel Road, on North Ward Street, and we have
Okay.
or bring it, there's a cross member drive with the modular
Keep going.
Back to the red light. This is all due respect to everybody else. Don't take all the seal across see people on the red light. This is a painful situation. I came up with this the other day. And the way they're already going red is that 4 people drive through that red. Just zoom through it. You slow down, you walk. So I understand the need for study, that you can understand the need for study and all that's still wrong. But I respectfully don't suggest it is a huge problem. Everybody sees the leadership is going on. They're going to see a lot of new issues. And frankly, they're going to see a lot of people don't try to do it anymore until 10 or 15 seconds expires before they feel safe. Just throw it out. It's a major problem. It's a solvable problem.
Right. Thank you.
First so I've been watching the ventures as 40 states, 7 counties in Maryland, and more than 1,000.
I remember evidence of agreement with Paris for 317. Agreement basically recognizes local police stations and sheriff's offices to do the job of falling on the budget of the local jurisdiction. One of the things we talked about is the accommodation control about it's certainly a budgetary issue that we would like to close that. I basically say, okay, now through this agreement, you are to be the ones who retain people and permit people to do all of that. As I said, all the expenses that
I'm not personally aware of that. President Pella, Mayor Cook, Chief Lowry, you guys have any insights?
So I'll tell you that at the beginning of the year when individuals working at the band up, myself and Lieutenant went out and visited multiple similar churches and talked to congregations, informing them of this is what Maryland state law allows for law enforcement to do in an immigration situation, or even asking about the immigration status. The Maryland state law is very restrictive as to when law enforcement officers are to ask about immigration status. We abide by that. My message also to visit, people that are in government discussions, that my first priority is the safety of the public. And the thing about it is now, in order for me to maintain that, I need people to feel comfortable calling the police, no matter what your status is. I need you to be comfortable telling me you're a victim or you're a witness and help me identify criminals. One of my main concerns, I think, is working in another jurisdiction and a very large Central American as well as Southeast Asian population. And if there's a portion of your population starts to feel afraid to call the police, it becomes an opportunity for criminals. There's any other thing involved. I've seen that play out in my 30+ years. So I'm not looking to take on anybody else's duties other than the town of Easton. Following this, the Easton drainage, where is it ultimately going? Where do you want to rebuild on that?
Yeah. That is a good question.
So if you've ever been on rails to trails, and you go over the wooden bridge, the spillage or the outflow is right there to the right. If you're heading more towards the Easton Park, it'll come out right there.
So not in our backyard. Not in our backyards. Good luck with the mic. You might not need it.
I probably don't need it. I'm pretty loud anyways. I just wanted to say something that we've been doing right in our district. And I was pointing to the projects that have been going on Aurora Street. I don't know if anybody's gone down South Aurora lately, but the striping, the speed cameras that are just identification for striping. Understood. The curb work, everything like that, sidewalk work. Thank you. This has been something that's been needed to happen for a while. It has cut down on the weekend called the drag strip between Brookfield and Idlewild. Although you're never going to stop people that are looking to break the law. I know you said that before. People are going to do it whether they're aware of how fast they're going or not. But it has definitely helped, and I really do appreciate the work that you all have been doing in that space to really keep this part of town.
Thank you, and I have to give credit to the town engineer and the public works department. I agree. It's a lot easier to go down and not have fear, especially for crossing the streets, which I do a lot, Aurora Street, and not have to worry about folks, protecting for speeders coming down as much. But it still does happen, like you said, but it's definitely improved.
It's perfect. It's in my front yard.
I think there's two. There's one in the north and one in the south. And
It actually tells you how fast you're walking.
you must walk pretty fast.
Are we any closer to getting the stop signs on Mecklenburg and Elwood to stop that speeding? How some child has not been paid in that street? The speeding, it starts all the way at the woods and goes up the drag racing. I know pets have been killed, but so far the children have made it, although I've seen one almost get it.
So the stop signs would be on Mecklenburg and on Elwood going up?
At every street or every other side street.
I've not heard about that.
They're also speeding down, they used to speed this way down the alleys, now they're going the other way.
I definitely enjoy the valley, but you have this.
Yeah, something that we were looking at and talking about the speed on. You talk about the speed on Mecklenburg, because one of the problems that the residents who live over in that area deal with is high school students who are in such a rush to leave school.
All day long.
Well, yeah, but it's a big problem with it there. And that's something that we were looking at as a possible stop sign at Mecklenburg, at Decatur or Oak or somewhere around there, to get people to stop and then hopefully get them to stop.
Okay, I'll look more into that.
I think the same student, parents as well.
Everyone, yeah.
It's everybody drives up and down. Students are a problem because I want to see what they're doing about.
Okay.
And they go down the residential streets too. I mean, they can veer off the Mecklenburg and go down Ridgebridge or anyways,
Right.
speeding down there.
Right.
And
I
if they go
see.
down the bridge, they go up Elwood, you think that's even better than they do. It's both sides.
Gotcha. I'll look more into that. Lance, I know you're doing
I was
patient.
looking at parking not being in your ward.
But
Yeah, you know, Maureen's is, you know, I said it was October. And,
this is amazing. Thank you for doing this. Absolutely incredible. Getting all these people together. I wanted to ask you, we're talking a lot about driving, and weather permits. I'm walking out of our car and walking bike. I'm a big proponent of the public drive, which is all that. And I wanted to ask you particularly about the new Frederick Douglass Trail, which we've now going through studies, and we're going to, the rail trail that exists now is nice, it's like 2.5 miles, something like that. Frederick Douglass Trail is 20 miles. And if it can be, if it can bring everybody together and compromise and shit that. But one of the aspects of it is a bike pedestrian lane, something over 50, which obviously, I wonder if I've heard anything about that, that's obviously this problem in your ward, and if you are watching that happen.
I mean, I believe it's being studied, like where best to put it, how best to address it. It does require funding. I think it's probably the way the President of Keller, I think, wants to.
No, I just, that's been a tight thing of mine for quite some time. For those of you not sure what we're talking about, it's the run from Easton up through Cordova to Queen Anne to where the Frederick Douglass Park is. And that would be an amazing feature for the county. I think it would be something that would attract people that want to come in for outdoor sports, bicycling, hiking, and so forth. It would be a great addition to the county. And they're in the process of doing a study, but like you said, it's going to involve not just our town, but also the county and the state to get that off the ground and to get all three organizations or governments going in the same direction at the same time. Sometimes it's a little while.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi. I'm just on behalf of some of my neighbors who live on Stewart Street, I also want to mention Stewart Street is a one-way street, and at least how many times a day? At least once a day?
This morning we were outside, two came to me
Yeah,
a minute.
people go down that
People go the
I didn't know it was
wrong
one way.
all the time.
I didn't know that.
Why you?
It was not me. It's not me. I'd be on foot.
A few years ago, I did call the town office because I was coming home down Hanson and went to turn left on the Stewart, and I was met with a car head on, which, because they had no stop sign because they're going the wrong way, they were just crossing over Hanson. So I called because there was not a one-way sign, and I can't remember if it was coming south or north on Aurora, but one of them was missing.
Okay.
But it still hasn't made it. Yeah,
Oh,
there's a
well.
one way on both sides now.
Yeah, do not enter in one way. Yeah, no, I'm happy to listen to that for sure.
You know, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
For a
well,
while,
continues that.
Google Maps didn't have this one way either, and I like
Yeah.
it. Got them back.
I mean, that's something that's really looking to. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I mean, I appreciate everybody coming out, and I think it's great, and questions and feedback have been great. I think, based on my recollection, most of the questions have come from folks. I don't want to divide the ward, but on the western side of sort of the ward, you know, with 50 being sort of in between, I know there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things going on the east side of 50, and things that we could maybe look at doing within the town. Does anybody who live over on that east side, and either Matthews Run or Hunters Mill, or anybody here that wants to share anything or ask any questions? Again, I don't want to put you on the spot. It's not a big deal, and you can contact me offline if you need to. But I just wanted to see whether there's anything that you all had to. Tim,
Yeah, I guess you probably go to the east side here.
you're not the only one.
We call ourselves Safari.
I went to a meeting, the state highway administration. had
Yes.
at the elementary school,
Yes.
talking about that, road and up there.
Yes.
They did some paving, they did an absolutely atrocious job putting in striping, markings, zero. Which is my opinion. But when you went through the neighborhood, scrolling and that, run, I didn't know that, they were on a four-way.
Yeah.
And you heard my complaint, nobody stops at my stop sign. It's a four-way. One corner is a park. The other night, there must have been 60 children in that park. And nobody was stopping for a stop sign. We powered and sent an officer out there, stealing maybe 2 minutes. Just fine. Everybody's complaining about red lights and stop signs. They're not doing it on their side. In the neighborhood, well, we should be 75 miles an hour left. I hear people hit these crosswalks and see the car. Well, picked up bolts and pieces of
Those are big speed bumps.
yeah, they're big speed bumps, they're speed crosswalks. But two buildings. I hear everybody's complaining about red lights at 50, red lights at 10 on the stop signs, and I'm putting it up at 50. I think that low speed residential is important. We have something and now it's
Well, I mean, I know the state. Well, I mean, I think with regard to the state work, I think that we can help in some ways in the county and trying to list down the state highway administration to make sure they're addressing needs to our desires. But and then, of course, certainly there's efforts that can be taken to try and enforce around the stop signs.
as a first responder, that's the best thing. If anybody's interested after this meeting, I will show them the fight. If anybody's got any questions about what
Oh, cool.
stations or what we have, why we have what we have, we weren't very sure.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Dave.
Speaking of stop signs, we certainly appreciate the four ways.
Yes.
It's you don't notice anything. I have a four-way stop sign near my house now too. Used to be a two-way stop sign. There are all kinds of accidents at Dutchman's and Aurora. So I think these four-way stop signs are really helpful. Yes, ma'am. Oh, welcome. This is all of our first meeting of this kind.
Things that tells you how fast you're going, and people are actually slowing down. So this is something that you take back and take your own
Thank you.
So I just feel really you're able to do how much are you working together and you're sharing this and you're coming up with solutions, but I'm just saying that.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming and for sharing. I would agree with you. I've heard also Mulberry Station has some issues with stop signs. I think there have been some improvements, but with what we've had on Aurora Street with the speed, just showing you what you're going, I think that could be a solution for the high school as well.
Unfortunately, in Mulberry Station, the reason why those cameras those monitors went in there was because the child was hit.
It was not a factor in there.
It wasn't a factor, but distracting.
That was a kid running out of the street.
He was. But the idea that goes along with what Tim Knox was talking about is making people more aware going into neighborhoods that there aren't children and slowing people down, which is what we want to make sure they're doing. And that's why we have it on our board also. And maybe there's an idea that we look at some different neighborhoods and see what's necessary.
And it's where the striping for the parking areas come into play. Like I think when you see a stripe showing that this is where you park, you're less likely to kind of weave around or use the whole road, and you're more aware. And I think the crosswalks we have now on Aurora Street, and Harrison and Washington work with the lights and all those things. Some people might think you might think they're a nuisance, but it's really helpful to address safety and give facilitate the pedestrian friendliness and safety around that.
I got a question for you.
You are a resident, so please,
Wow.
Mr. Lowry.
And I've said this many times, and to the town government is, Don shares some of the sentiment is, when you live east of 50, there's a disconnect with the rest of the town where it feels like a lot of resources are poured into the center of town. There is no viable way for a family of kids I live off Matthews Town at Milehurst to go down that road and cross over to the rails of trail. There's not even, to get to Chapel, there's not even access on Route 50 to get to the one crosswalk at Chapel. There's no crosswalk at Matthews Town, so you essentially have to drive and park somewhere to take care of those needs. And I think that should be a bigger priority for the town, because there's a lot of families that live in Mulberry, I live in Brentridge, Matthews Town, and now Canyon Range. I mean, it's a big constituency out there that, that all contribute to the town.
Absolutely. I know you and I have had this conversation before. I was annoying to the state highway when I was Ward 2 representative because I longed for them to redo how 328 is set up, including adding a separate bike/walking trail along the side of 328 so that a kid could get on his bike and leave Mulberry Station and be able to bike safely alongside of 328. With that, the state highway is planning on doing crosswalks at Goldsboro and Dover. Now, I will preface it, it's supposed to start next summer. I will preface it with the fact that they've been talking about it since I first got on the council in 2019, but it's supposed to start in 2026, which would make these crosswalks over 50, crosswalks at 50 at Goldsboro and Dover Road. And if we could get the state to get on board with some kind of separate trail for residents on 328, that would make that possible. But you're right, right now, you know, when I used to take my kids over to the rails trails, we loaded the bikes in the back of the car and we drove across it.
Can I pose a question to you guys, for people that are here? Since we talk so much about traffic, how many, I've, usually when we have around 4 to 6 officers that are patrolling. We've got staff who respond to our calls for service or calls for activity, between 20 to 25,000. A lot, right? 4 to 6 officers at any given time of the day. We are only a temporary solution to traffic problems, because as soon as we leave, we're no longer that solution. How many people here are in favor of 24/7 engineering, such as speed humps, speed tables, things like that, on your roads that are always there?
I'll bring up the statement.
I hear that.
I think this is a really valid thing. Everyone complains about speed bumps or fix that problem, but the very next thing that you're going to get complaints about is all the banging, the slamming, the rattling, every trailer, everything that hits that. And so now you're going to have a bunch of noise. So be mindful when you ask for a speed bump what things like come with it, because you may not like the outcome of that, but absolutely. I mean, we've had problems, on Earl and Aurora for years with people passing the buses, speeding, things along those. You guys plates. Police officers there, we have to laugh because one person will be standing there with that people apart, with Asian people that have lined up along the road. The striping has really helped reduce that. Let's get rid of it. We have some go 48. We know we were going 48. Cameras said when they get past it. Down Aurora Street, people are going to break the law. It's what's going to happen. But you hope that you catch 90% of people that are sleeping, not realizing what they're doing. But the second you start asking for all of the stuff that people create more noise, I live on the corner of Earl and Aurora, we have that coming up. I don't think there's a contractor's trailer in the county that is high enough to make it over that without screaming. And most cars that, stop at that stop sign, which pretty much all of them don't, they probably have it there. They basically scrape underneath their cars, and we hear that every day too. When you say you're a living room, we hear that. But that does not mean I want to speed bump here and a speed bump here, because I would like that to be able to sit on my porch as well and not hear that rattle. But that was a conversation I had with you. You brought it up, and I thought it was really good. Try something if it was temporary, like temporary speed bump in, and see if you get complaints in that regard, or you can think about something.
And I will tell you how we do our traffic complaints is we have a running list. And we go to the officer if they're available between calls, we go sit in different areas like that. So you don't see us all right, because we just on this meeting, we're rotating through this something, but there's a lot of places to sit and we see 0 violations.
We're right at the time. Ma'am, I thought you had your hand up. Did you want to ask something before we? There was an issue with the Department of Housing and Urban Development on a federal level that changed some goalposts around some of the requirements. I understand that those have been addressed. The wait list was opened up, and I think folks came out to sign up for that. I believe it's in process, but I do know that I have not seen people move in. So, Mayor Cook, do you have an update on that? Easy. Okay.
All the events that you have downtown, news presence,
Well, it's a good force, and I've always felt very safe around town whenever I'm around the department, and everybody's really nice and helpful, and so I think that's great. So with that, I think we'll be able to wrap this town hall up. I want to thank you all again for coming out. It's great to see so many Ward 2 residents, as well as other non-Ward 2 residents, so thank you. I want to thank President Monticello, thank Mayor Cook, thank Reverend Davis, thank Chief Lowry for coming out, thank the town of Easton for help putting this together as well. And so just thanks again, and have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow.